Hi, I'm Dr. Sonali Garg. Today we'll be talking about food prices, medical costs, and rent. Cost of renting a house. We'll be discussing these together. I'll be doing this for the U.S. market, for the U.S. economy, and generally having a general discussion on how these costs can be brought down. Okay. So first thing for food prices is, there are anti-gouging laws in the U.S. where if, for example, during a hurricane or some other natural calamity, for example, companies, because demand for, let's say, umbrellas or torch batteries or drinking water, etc., will shoot up a lot. And sometimes companies might be tempted to take advantage of that to increase their prices. There are laws against that. Okay. So you can't charge egregious prices, especially during a national emergency, right? Now, that is one way of doing this, okay? But one of the issues with that is that, okay, so you have, that is a short, temporary situation. In that case, if they don't have enough supplies, then it'll have the question of who gets priority, first come, first serve. If you have pricing there, pricing actually determines, if there is only, 10, liters of water and, there is demand for 100 liters, then whoever pays the highest will get it, okay? Now, very often in many parts of the world, just because somebody can pay a higher price for something, they don't think they're entitled to get it, especially during an emergency. Okay. Now, that is there. Okay. Now, another way that the governments can do it is that they can say, okay, we are going to just say that you can't charge a price greater this amount. Okay. Forget about an emergency. Okay. Suppose you just come in and intervene. That presents certain. So the emergency is one situation. Let's look at a general, normal everyday situation. The government feels the price of something are too high. If the government intervenes and says, okay, you can't charge a price higher than this, but the market is trying to charge a higher price higher than that, then what will happen? So, for example, the government says you can't charge, more than, let's say, $2 for a loaf of bread. So what producers will start doing is they'll start making smaller and smaller loaves of bread, and the bread will become lighter and lighter. Then the government can come and say, okay, the bread should weigh, a certain amount. So what the bakers might start doing is not baking the bread fully, because when you bake a bread, when you bake bread, it becomes lighter. So these are ways that people will get around it. Okay. So there should be other ways to control this. And that's what we'll be discussing today. All right. So what we'll look at is one of the ways that we can encourage and, bring down prices is to encourage competition. So let's say, for example, you like to buy bread. Okay. So you work in place A and you live in place B. And on your way home from work, because you like to keep your weekends free, you don't want to do shopping. So on your way from work to home, let's say from work to home, okay, workplace, to home, okay. Let's say there are 10 stores, a Kroger, then 7-Eleven, maybe what else? Kroger, Meyer, I spent some time in the Midwest. I'm able to think of those stores. Okay. So these are all places that, let's say, are selling bread, right? So let's say there's a choice of 10 stores along your way home. Right now, you have a choice of stopping, anywhere along the way to pick up bread. Okay. Now, suppose instead of there being 10 stores now, there are only 5 stores now. Some of them shut down. Okay. You think prices will go up at these stores or will go down if there are fewer stores? Typically, other things being equal, as the amount of places selling a particular good go down, the total quantities, the price that they charge goes up, and the overall quantity that is being sold goes down. Okay. Now, suppose instead of 5 stores now, okay, let's say that out of some have gone out of business. Now, let's say out of these 5 stores now, there are only 2 stores left, for whatever reason. Okay, there are 2 stores left. Again, we'll see that the price will go up further and quantity demanded, the equilibrium quantity will go down even more. All right, the quantity that is being traded. Now, suppose these 2 stores, get together and they collude. Okay. They behave like a monopolist. They decide that instead of competing, we will collude with each other and we'll jointly set prices. Then what will happen is prices will go up even further and output will go down. The amounts being sold will go down even more. Right? So where does the government step into this? Okay. So the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice Okay, and then it is, Department of Justice, Division of Antitrust. And what do we call it? Antitrust. At one time in the US, there were cartels formed and they call themselves trusts. Okay. And so this was, legislation was there against these trusts, and the actions taken like them are called antitrust. In many other parts of the world, it's just called competition law, or that's that's what the agencies are named. Anyway, the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice together handle cases of antitrust where they are finding that, let's say firms have, there is suspicion that firms have colluded. And so what they do is they go and try to prove, first, get evidence, prove it. Sometimes the evidence is very easily available. Sometimes hard to get the evidence. Anyway, they get the evidence and then action is taken against the colluders. So, and then that of course is a deterrent then for colluders. Another thing that they do is that, let's say when you move from, let's say that instead of colluding, these two firms decided to merge. Okay. So what happens is the government also looks at whether a merger how much will be the concentration in the market. All right. Now, of course, this is an extreme example. Let's say sort of 3 stores, 2 stores. Let's say there were 3 stores. Okay. And they had market shares, like, let's say, one had 50%, the other one had 30%, the other one had 20%, and together they made up the entire market. In which case, what happens is, suppose these two decide to merge, or let's say these two decide to merge. All right. Now the government will actually, depending upon the size of the, there should be minimum size, etc. The government can actually go and say that, okay, they say that we will not allow this merger simply because they're scared that, one firm will have 80% of the market, the other will have 20%. Or if these two merge, let's say, each of them will have 50%. That is anyway very low concentration, a very high concentration and low amount of competition. And then even if they're not colluding, this is not a desirable situation. If the government can find a way to prevent it, the government will do that. Now, the question then becomes is how, what you need. Okay, so one needs the government's will to go and implement the laws that are already there in the books. For that, the head of the Federal Trade Commission, Chairperson Leena Khan, and then the Department of Justice, Antitrust Division, have also been, nominated by Joe Biden. And then, of course, they were subsequently, they go through the process of, the selection. Voting. They became they took over the respective duties. All right. So basically, the way to ensure that one of the ways to ensure prices coming down is to make sure that for food, like, let's say the producers of food, which may be actually not, I don't know how much the concentration is there, but definitely the retailers of food, they can be concentrated. Then there is the wholesalers, they can be, we can look at that. Then medical costs, again, same thing. If there are few companies, they collude, etc. Another way is medical companies, or any other company, if they can manage it, will try to keep out competition. So one of the ways to do it is through patents. Okay, patents or patents, right? Pronounced differently in different parts of the world. Spelled like this. Okay. Okay. So this can be a way to prevent competition from coming in. The Federal Trade Commission has recently looked at patents relating to inhalers and found that many of them were actually how should I say, frivolous in a way, or not really required for the production of the good. And after a lot of letter writing to the company, at least one company has assured that they will lower the price of the inhalers, which will help people. Okay, so that is one other way that the government can bring down prices. Regarding housing, there has been, post 2008, 7, 8, when the housing crisis happened, a lot of housing got concentrated in a few hands. A lot of people bought up houses who may not have been people who wish to necessarily live in them, or just, be the local landlord. Okay. And what has happened is, so one is, again, moment it gets concentrated, we know that, other things being equal, rent should go up. and they might even find it more profitable to keep some units empty and raise the price a lot on the other one. So at the same time, you have empty housing and homelessness can occur. Another thing is at least one company has been accused of helping landlords. Okay, so let's say 70% of the landlords used a particular company's algorithms, okay, for setting, managing their rents and then managing the process of lending out. And there's been accusation, and the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, has gone after them. The case, I think, is now being appealed. Is going up to another level of the justice system. But anyway, the idea is that if they suspect cartelization is there, they will come down on that. Okay, so one is to make sure. Of course, it is not that if people have become larger because they're more efficient, nobody's going to people are not going to bother with that. But the idea is that one way to keep prices low, ensure better quality, etc., is to have competition. And both the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice, by implementing the laws on the book, are actually ensuring increasingly that there is a competition in the market, which will then itself bring down prices. So instead of going and setting a price and then worrying about whether people are going around it, they're letting the market. This is one way to ensure that the market left to itself gives us the desired outcome. And what the government does is it ensures a level playing field, or as far as it can manage. So instead of micromanaging the price, which anyway is difficult for governments to do, and pretty much, except, as I said, for let's say an emergency. Other than that, it is not really a smart thing to do. So the market left to itself will give us good results, and the way the market will give us good results, or at least move towards giving us good results, will be to ensure adequate competition.